Tropical FM TV. Music for your soul.
Drastically interested in. Now, of course, I would like to point out that all of our information from tonight's show has in fact come from NASA directly. So I'd like to give thanks to them for the information and give them the credit for the work that they've done. Of course, we do have our co-host in the chat room. He also had his birthday last week, so happy belated birthday, Jeff. Hope you enjoyed your day. I'd love to find out what you did over that day. I'm sure most others would as well. So, of course, I'd like to announce that if you are, in fact, interested in being part of Exploring and Understanding the Universe, or would like to sponsor us, I will provide the email details for you a little bit later on in the show for you, just so you can get ready for your pen and paper, whatever else, okay? Right, so I am going to throw you over to our very first video. This from NASA should pretty much give you an idea on what this planet is. So check this one out. It's NASA begins building the next rover mission. Check this out.
NASA's next Mars rover is in development and has an ambitious mission. Decades of Mars research from previous spacecraft have shown the planet not only had water in the ancient past, but had environments that could have supported life.
Mars is our neighboring planet and in many ways the most similar to us, and certainly in its history. And the question whether ancient life was there is still the question that keeps us up at night.
Mars 2020 has two new objectives: to specifically seek the signs of life and then sample materials and prepare a cache that could be returned to Earth by a future mission.
Mars 2020 is really the essential first part of a sample return mission. So it actually looks at the environment of these samples and then collects them and stores them. Afterwards, we will, of course, go and bring these samples back. So Mars 2020 is the first half of a return trip.
The Mars 2020 mission, to the maximum extent possible, follows the Mars Science Laboratory Curiosity mission. We're going to use very similar rocket, very similar cruise stage, very similar entry, descent, and landing. And the rover, when you step back, will look almost identical.
Not only were a lot of designs already developed for the most part, but we're also using a lot of spare hardware that we had from MSL or Curiosity for Mars 2020. If you know where to look on Lab, you can walk around and see a lot of the EDL hardware and the cruise stage hardware that's already been built.
And this is really important for understanding why this mission makes sense. We have to do relatively little in the way of new development. And this saves money, it saves risk, it saves time. It's the right way to pursue this kind of mission.
Mars 2020 also features new technologies for entry, descent, and landing, allowing it to target a smaller landing zone and even divert from known risks in the area.
It means that we can both go to places that are maybe more interesting to the scientists because we're able to handle places with more hazards, as well as land closer to the things that they're interested in off the bat. So we get to the science that they care about and more quickly.
The three key sites that we are considering right now share one thing in common. They are all environments that might have been habitable in the very distant past. One of them is the floor of an ancient lake. Another is a hot spring. And the third one is a site where hot water interacted with rocks in the shallow subsurface. We have instruments on board which are expressly designed to seek evidence of ancient life, what we call biosignatures. And we have the capability to prepare samples, drill them out of a rock, seal them in a tube so that a future mission could go and bring them up. We call that caching.
So it is a first of a new type of mission, which is to bring samples back to the best labs we have, which are here on Earth. Mars 2020 is a pivotal mission in our search for life that could finally answer the age-old question, are we alone?
Thank you for that one, NASA. So, as you should all know, Mars is in fact our fourth planet from the Sun. Now, I'm hoping all of you guys know this, because you all did it back in school, right? Okay, well, yeah, it's a rocky planet, obviously, which gets its name after the Roman god of war. Now, maybe most of you might not know that one. Now, from the mission statement that NASA produced from this, said that, quote, "The goal of the Mars exploration program is to explore Mars and provide a continuous flow of scientific information and discovery through a carefully selected series of robotic orbiters, landers, and mobile laboratories, including interconnected by a high bandwidth between Earth and Mars." Now, the communication network of that will be provided between those two. Now, of course, there is a Mars exploration program, of course, which is found at mars.nasa.gov. Of course, I'm going to be throwing the next video over before I jump to that one. So this next video, of course, is a little bit on the Curiosity rover, and it captures some stunning Mars sunsets. Check this one out. You'll like it.
NASA's Curiosity Mars rover has captured a stunning image of the sun setting on the red planet. The image was taken by the Mars rover's mast camera on April 15th during the mission's 956th Martian day. The sunset was the first observed in color by Curiosity, which was located in Mars's Gale crater. Mars may be known as the red planet, although the sunset's blue hue is the result of fine dust particles in the Martian atmosphere. Quoting the poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot, the Curiosity rover tweeted, "Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky." For more on this story, visit foxnews.com.
Thank you for that one. So, since the first close-up picture of Mars, which was back in 1965, please rewind that thought, the spacecraft voyages to the red planet have in fact revealed a world strangely familiar, yet in fact different enough to challenge our perceptions of what makes a planet work. Crazy. So let's take a look at our next video, and what we're having a look at is inspiring reporter interviews Bolden about NASA's journey to Mars. Check this one out. There's also another one as well, so I'm going to have a back-to-back with, Dr. Michio Kaku on NASA's discovery of liquid water on Mars. Check these out. You're going to love it.
In 2010, a photographer named Brandon from New York City started an artistic and journalistic experiment called Humans of New York, telling the unique story of his portrait subjects. In 2015, we met Max, a 9-year-old with a big dream and loads of confidence. Max is quoted in Humans of New York as saying, "My dad goes all over the world and learns about the news. One time he met a king. I want to be a reporter too. If I was a reporter right now, I'd probably write a story about if NASA was going to launch a new rocket into space. I'd start by going to the director of NASA. Then I'd ask him about his rockets and if any of them were going to space." On November 23rd, Max's dream of being a reporter came true as he visited NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. and interviewed Administrator Bolden.
Good morning, Mr. Bolden. I'm thrilled to be here.
Good morning, and please call me Charlie.
Let's start with the question I asked on the Humans of New York blog. Where are you going to send your next rocket?
Well, we actually have a number of rockets we're going to fly. The big destination for us is Mars, sending humans to Mars in the 2030s. And to do that, we have a rocket that's called a Space Launch System right now. We haven't given it a name, so maybe you can help us name it. And it's going to be the largest rocket we've ever built. And then it's going to carry on top of it a capsule that will have the crew, and that capsule is called Orion. Orion flew for the first time last year with no people in it, very successfully. So we're hoping to launch that sometime in the 2018 to 2020 time frame. Right now, our big next flight for humans, because we fly right now on a Russian spacecraft, is to work with 2 American companies, SpaceX and Boeing, on 2 commercial crew vehicles to carry astronauts to low Earth orbit. And Boeing calls theirs the CST-100 Starliner, and Boeing and SpaceX calls theirs the Crew Dragon.
Put yourself in my shoes. I'm 10. What do you hope that NASA will have accomplished in my lifetime?
Oh, let me tell you what, I have no idea what we're going to accomplish in your lifetime, but in the next 20 years of your life, by the time you're 30, and I picked 30 because when I became an astronaut, and I never dreamed of being an astronaut, by the way, we can talk about that also. I applied for the astronaut program and was selected when I was 34 years old, and that's pretty typical. So by the time you're 30, you'll be able to apply for the astronaut program, and by that time, my hope is that we will have migrated NASA astronauts out of low Earth orbit. We'll be operating routinely around the moon again. We'll be in what we call our proving ground for going on to Mars. And we'll be right on the verge of sending humans to the Martian environment for the very first time. So there is a good chance that you, as a 10-year-old today, will be on the first crew that takes the trip to Mars.
Thank you very much, Mr. Max.
Max, you were awesome. And next time you have your own show on CNN or wherever you have it, would you invite me to come back again?
Sure.
Even if I'm an old guy?
Sure.
All right, good luck to you, too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Scientists have known of ice in the poles of Mars for years, but this week NASA confirmed the existence of flowing liquid salt water on the red planet. The moisture is still in trace amounts and often well below freezing, but its existence has huge ramifications for us humans. Could life be sustained on the red planet? Dr. Michio Kaku is here. He's a theoretical physicist, professor at the City College of New York, and certainly the smartest person who has ever sat at the oval plexiglass table. Welcome back, Doctor.
Well, glad to be here.
So let's talk about Mars. This is very exciting. What's the importance of flowing water, and why is that different from the frozen water?
Well, NASA hit the jackpot this week. The holy grail of planetary research is to find flowing liquid water, which can one day perhaps sustain life. To get life off the ground, what do you need? Three things. One, energy, like sunlight. Two, organic chemicals. Three, liquid water. Mars has two of the three, but Mars is frozen solid.
Yeah.
So how can life possibly exist? The key is in one word: antifreeze. You put antifreeze in your car so that it remains liquid even though everything else is freezing outside. That's why Mars has liquid water, because it has magnesium perchlorates, other chemicals which lower the freezing point of the liquid.
Okay, so these perchlorates that are in the water that allow it to still flow freely.
That's right.
Is there any way, I mean, you say that we could harness that for rocket fuel?
Eventually, the hope is that there are aquifers, underground aquifers that feed these little trickles of water, these riverbeds. Once we tap into the aquifers, we can get wells.
Yeah.
Once we have wells, we can refine it for drinking water. And rocket fuel. You can separate out the oxygen and the hydrogen, because water is H2O after all, for rocket fuel. And one day, maybe even irrigate crops. That, of course, is perhaps decades into the future. But the very fact that we can talk like this is amazing. The planet is frozen solid and yet has liquid water.
So has this moved the prospect of a manned mission to Mars forward? Is it closer than it was 2 weeks ago?
No, we're still talking about perhaps the 2030s.
Yeah.
We're still testing the booster rocket. We're testing the capsule. We're in the early stages, basically, of being able to send a manned mission to Mars. That's not going to change.
And
Matt Damon's going to have to wait.
He's gonna have to wait, but you know what? It's only, what, 15, 20 years until we get there?
That's right.
All right, so those booster rockets, I've seen some interesting stuff from private space explorers. How important will they be? You know, because it doesn't seem like the government is going to alone be able to fund these manned missions. How important will private space exploration be to one day landing on Mars?
Well, everyone says, including the president, that we need a new Sputnik moment to energize the space program.
Yeah.
That's difficult because President Obama canceled Sputnik. He canceled the manned space program.
Yeah.
And he has left it to private industry to pick up the slack. So we don't have to thumb a ride on Russian booster rockets. So SpaceX, led by Elon Musk,
Yes.
is among the cutting edge of private enterprise getting involved in the space program.
Yeah, and he has designed some really interesting looking rockets that, you know, I don't know the mechanisms that actually make them fly, but it's certainly different than anything we've seen on Earth.
And that drives his space program. In fact, he wants to nuke Mars. You know that, right? I wouldn't go that far. We could do it. We could drop a hydrogen bomb.
Well, what does that
polarized
do?
cap.
Does that change the climate and warm it up for us?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
If we nuke the ice caps, liquid water will flow on the surface of Mars again, speeding up the terraforming of Mars. That is creating a Garden of Eden on the red planet. However, the fact that we have liquid salt water on Mars, I think, is a game changer. It means that perhaps we don't have to nuke Mars. Perhaps we just have to drill into the soil to get liquid water from wells.
Yeah, and then we can dig into middle Mars and create our own colony and little tiny Martian hobbits.
Who knows? I mean, the imagination goes wild, right? Thinking about this.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're back. Please visit us again. We can talk about the heavens, physics, and beyond. Dr. Michio Kaku, thank you.
Thank you for that one. So I just want to do a quick shout out. There'll be a few people currently there. Chris, Matt, Lucy, and Jeff. Great to have you participating with the show. It's great. We also had a few people jumping in as well. We had Meryl, we had Jane, Kyle. There's Chris again, there's Paul, Lucy, Sarah, loads and loads and loads of people. So yeah, keep getting interactive with the show. Please share it. It'll be great. Thank you. So yeah, moving on. Every time we feel close to understanding Mars, in fact, their new discoveries sends us straight back to the drawing board to revise existing theories. Now, you would think Mars would be easier to understand. A bit like Earth, Mars has a polar ice caps, and of course it has clouds in its atmosphere. Now, of course, its seasonal weather patterns include volcanoes, the canyons, and other recognizable features. However, conditions on Mars may vary widely from what we know on our own planet, right? Okay, let's bear with that for a second. So let's take a look at our next video. I think you guys will enjoy this one. NASA's path to Mars. Everyone's been craving about this video. So, NASA, over to you.
A big rocket ship. We're having fun. 3, 2, 1. Let's go! We're going to the sky. Yeah, look at the rocket ship.
Mars, a rich destination for scientific discovery. As we expand our presence into the solar system with robotic and human exploration, the formation and evolution of Mars will help us learn more about our own planet's history and future. In its past, the red planet had conditions suitable for life, and future exploration may uncover evidence of life, answering one of the fundamental mysteries of humanity. Does life exist beyond Earth?
At NASA, we're reaching for new heights so that we remain the world's leader in space. We're pioneers, and we always have been, and we're building on that pioneering spirit in science and technology so that we make the world a better place and we create jobs right here on Earth.
NASA is developing the capabilities needed to send humans to an asteroid by 2025 and to Mars in the 2030s.
We're building something that can go lunar. We can build something to go to an asteroid. We can go to Mars with this. This is the next step that we've been looking for since the Apollo era.
Robotic explorers have studied Mars for more than 40 years. NASA's path for human exploration of Mars begins in low Earth orbit aboard the International Space Station. On board the orbiting laboratory, astronauts are helping us prove many of the technologies and communications systems needed for human missions into deep space.
Well, the crews right now on the International Space Station are using this wonderful outpost to help us get farther and farther into space, to asteroids, to Mars eventually. I think the science on station is making incredible breakthroughs that are going to help us make life better for people right here on Earth.
We and our other international partner crewmates are working off the planet for the planet.
NASA, along with our international partners,
conduct scientific research every day here on the station as we use this orbiting laboratory as a stepping stone for future deep space exploration.
In tandem with space station research, NASA will send a robotic mission to capture and redirect an asteroid to orbit the Moon. Astronauts aboard NASA's Orion spacecraft will explore the asteroid and return to Earth with samples. This experience will help NASA test new systems and capabilities, such as solar electric propulsion, which will send cargo as part of human missions to Mars. NASA's new Space Launch System will enable these proving ground missions to test new capabilities. Human missions to Mars will rely on Orion and an evolved version of the SLS, which will be the most powerful rocket ever flown.
With Orion and our heavy lift space launch system, we're going to send humans into space farther than they've ever gone before. This year's Orion test flight will be the most aggressive for a human spacecraft in more than 40 years.
Apollo happened before I was born, so this for our generation will be the exploration missions that we get to see in our lifetime.
A fleet of robotic spacecraft and rovers are already on and around Mars, dramatically increasing our knowledge about the red planet and paving the way for future human explorers. Future missions seeking signs of past life will demonstrate new technologies that can help astronauts survive on Mars.
I think some of the most amazing things that we're learning are actually how to be really good detectives on another planet, which is a really difficult job.
Engineers and scientists around the country are working hard to develop the technologies astronauts will use to one day live and work on Mars, and then safely return home from the next giant leap for humanity.
Through advanced aerospace technologies used in everything from modern aircraft to suborbital rockets and the commercial vehicles servicing low Earth orbit today, we're building the machines to take us farther into the high frontier. NASA is here to raise the bar for human achievement. We're a community dedicated to research and discovery in service to society. We have a responsibility to the future generations, to the future generations of engineers, scientists, technologists, explorers. That's our challenge.
Thank you for that one, NASA. So my co-presenter's just like been pulling at my ear and saying, hey, might be worth mentioning to the viewers. He says, because he's part of the Astronomer Club, that viewers can actually see Mars, for real, in the south around 6 a.m. now. He says Jupiter appears as a really bright star above the southern horizon. You can't miss it, he says. I'll take his word for that one. I'm in Luton, I can't see anything. Mars appears as a bright pinkish star at the 8 o'clock position from Jupiter. So guys, if you got your telescopes or your binoculars or whatever it is that you've got, if you've got fantastic eyesight, brilliant. My kind of thought on this would be go to Box Hill. There you are, and you'll be able to check it out because I can't see nothing from where I'm at. But okay, so moving forward, now over the past 3 decades, spacecraft have actually shown us that Mars, in fact, is rocky, cold, and dry beneath its hazy form of pink sky that it's got. Now, NASA said that they've actually discovered that today's Martian wasteland hints at a formerly violated world where, in fact, volcanoes once raged. There was things like meteors that plowed deep craters into its core or crust or whatever it is, and flash floods that, in fact, rushed over the land back in the day when it was still alive. Now, some scientists say that Mars was in fact like an Earth planet, similar to it. In fact, it died out. We don't know why, potentially. But of course, Mars continues to throw out new enhancements with each landing or orbital passes made by our spacecrafts. Now, I'm going to throw you over a back-to-back. I'm going to throw this as a little bit of a different one. We're going to be still talking about Mars, but you guys need to be active on this part. So First one is of the Astro Clubs with my co-presenter. And the second one is, of course, a NASA news update, which is something you guys might be interested in, which is Feel the Rumble with the RS-25 engine test and what they've been doing at NASA for this week. Check these two out. See you after.
Hi, this is Jeff on Exploring and Understanding the Universe. If you're getting into astronomy, it's all very well getting kitted out with all the gear, but perhaps the best thing to do is to join an astronomy club. There are hundreds of astronomy clubs around the world and dozens scattered throughout the UK, usually with more than one in a given county. There are also a number of national astronomical organisations, of which the most well known are the British Astronomical Association and the Society for Popular Astronomy. Either way, a quick look online is almost certain to locate a band of astronomically minded folk in your part of the world. I'm currently a member of 3 astronomy organisations and of course co-host here on this show. You can certainly gather a lot of fascinating astronomy information by yourself through books, magazines, TV, online, and of course right here on Exploring and Understanding the Universe. But there are undoubted benefits of joining your local astronomy club. First, you'll get the opportunity to try out various types of telescope before you commit your hard-earned cash to buying your own instrument. Second, people are always willing to show off their knowledge, so there'll always be someone happy to answer your questions and advise and guide you through any aspects of astronomy you're not sure about. Third, you'll get the chance to take part in the club's activities and contribute towards them. It shouldn't be expensive either. Annual membership should usually only be a matter of tens of pounds. The club I belong to in Hampshire is always active in public outreach and astronomy, so we hold regular public evenings at our observatory, monthly presentations, and of course we have a monthly magazine which I've been known to contribute to. It's always satisfying to show people the wonders of the universe, especially something like Saturn, which definitely has a wow factor, because everyone says that when they see the amazing ring system for the first time. But there's literally no end of amazing objects out there, easily more than enough for a lifetime of engaging and even mind-boggling observations. So a great way to start out in astronomy is to join your local club and get active. Even if you're not able to get to your local club in person, these days they'll almost certainly have a website and probably a forum where you can contact fellow members. So what are you waiting for? And that's all for this time. Clear skies and see you soon. Bye.
Firing the engine that will power humans to deep space. Testing a potential source of power for future exploration. And practicing water recovery of the Orion spacecraft. A few of the stories to tell you about this week at NASA. On January 16th, our Stennis Space Center in Mississippi tested an RS-25 engine flight controller on a developmental engine. The flight controller is set to fly on NASA's new Space Launch System rocket that will launch astronauts aboard our Orion spacecraft beyond Earth orbit, including to the Moon and Mars. NASA is partnering with the Department of Energy on the Kilopower project. The goal? Develop nuclear power technologies that could provide a power source for long-duration stays on planetary surfaces. Testing is expected to continue through March. In preparation for upcoming exploration missions with SLS and our Orion spacecraft, NASA and the U.S. Navy are testing procedures and hardware needed to recover Orion and its crew from the ocean after the spacecraft's return from missions beyond low Earth orbit. NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration announced on January 18th the results of independent analyses by each agency of Earth's global surface temperatures for 2017. NASA found 2017 was the second warmest year since modern record keeping began in 1880. While due to minor differences in how the data is processed, NOAA found 2017 was the third warmest year on record. That's what's up this week at NASA. For more on these and other stories, follow us on the web at nasa.gov/TWAN.
Thank you for that, Jeff, and thanks for that, NASA. So the definition of the question of the Mars exploration. Now, life on Mars. It's a big thing that everyone's been talking about, right? Is there not? Who knows, right? Okay, well, among NASA's discoveries about Mars, one stands out above all of the others: the possible presence of liquid water on Mars. Now, most of us, if you're a scientific-based brain or anything like that, if you have liquid water on Mars, light bulb, hey, that's liquid water. That could mean life, right? Come on, think about it. Now, it's either in its ancient past or present in the subsurface, and that's what they've actually found today. Now, water is key because almost everywhere we find it on Earth, like I said, we find life. In any form of shape, size, cellular structure, you name it, it's alive, it's life, right? Now, if Mars once had liquid water, or it still does today, it's compelling to ask whether any microscopic life forms could have, in fact, developed on its surface. Now, is there any evidence of life in the planet's past? If so, could any of these tiny living creatures still exist today? I mean, imagine how exciting it would be to be the answer would be yes. Now, I'm going to leave that one with you for a minute. We're going to throw you over to another NASA news update. And this one is, in fact, NASA examines technology to fold aircraft wings in flight. Check this one out. I think you'll like it.
Crew chief, let's go for left engine start.
EGT good. Stabilize. Good. Both sides.
Good to go. Walk her up. I need to go, no go for takeoff. Go, no go for takeoff. Halos go. Aero controls. Aero controls go. Antenna. Antennas go.
Go.
GSO.
GSO's go.
Crew chief. Crew chief is go. EP. Go.
Okay, airspeed 16, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90. Rudder doublet.
Going to be maneuver 4.
Okay, maneuver 4, entering turn here.
Let's go to 60. Couple left and right.
Left and right coupled.
Enable left actuator.
Both enabled.
Position field 60.
Position field 60.
And 80% left command ready.
Sending. Set. $80, 78, 77, 75, 72, 70, 65, 64, 60, 58, 55, 50.
Wow, I was just sitting there, I was just thinking, wow, wouldn't it be great to have one of those being flown in the sky? Stick a camera on it, looking down. How cool would that be? I don't know, me and technology. So even if Mars is in fact devoid of the past or present life, however, there is still much excitement on the horizon. I mean, we ourselves might in fact become life on Mars, right? Well, should humans choose to travel there one day, but meanwhile, we still have a lot to learn about this amazing planet and its extreme environments. Now, of course, the next information which we're going to be pointing out is the exploration strategy. Now, signs out of life. So, to discover the possibilities of past or present life on Mars. Now, NASA's Mars exploration program is currently following an exploration strategy known as Seek Signs of Life. Now, yeah, I'll let you guys check that one out a little bit, but we're going to check out the Space to Ground because they're preparing for a spacewalk that they had done on the 19th of January. So we're going to have a look to see what it was that they were going to do. Just in case if you guys missed it out or you guys saw it, check it out. This is what they did.
Houston Station on Space to Ground. Welcome to Space to Ground. I'm Gary Jordan. Some station science has successfully returned to Earth, and now crew members are gearing up for a pair of spacewalks focusing on the robotic arm. After being maneuvered into position and released entirely by ground operators, a new feat I might add, the SpaceX Dragon landed safely in the Pacific on Saturday with 4,100 pounds of cargo and science samples on board. Back for analysis on Earth are studies on fiber optic filaments that were manufactured in microgravity, plants that were grown on orbit to test their reaction to stress, and live mice that will evaluate a new drug delivery device to help combat muscle waste. Now station crew members are preparing for 2 spacewalks to replace a vital piece of the Canadarm2. While this week was busy with reviewing procedures and cleaning out their spacesuits, the real action starts next week. Mark Vande Hei and Scott Tingle will be the first to make their way outside the station and swap out the latching end effector from the tip of the station's robotic arm, Canadarm2. Vande Hei will go out once again the following week, this time with Norishige Kanai, to finish storing the degraded hardware outside the station and get a few extra maintenance tasks out of the way. In between the week's schedule of preparation and science, Scott Tingle took some time to answer some questions from ABC and Space.com. Here's what the new station resident had to say.
Are you looking forward to your spacewalk coming up?
Absolutely. We just spent the morning preparing. We just did a suit check and made sure everything was working right. And this is going to be a lifetime memory for sure. And I'm looking forward to getting out there and fixing up the systems that we'll be working on.
Keep sending your questions using the hashtag #SpaceToGround. And for those educators out there, visit NASA's STEM on Station website below to find out ways to get involved during NASA's Year of Education, a celebration of an almost 12-month presence of a teacher on board the International Space Station. You can find out how to connect your students to educators in space. We'll see you next week.
Subscribe for more space.
Well, I'd just like to say Frankie's watching in as well. He used to be part of the, or still is, hopefully, Sunday Night Live team, hopefully. I don't know. He has to get back to us on that one. But yeah, just to give a hi to him, thank you for tuning in. So, of course, this science theme marks on transition on Mars exploration. It, in fact, reflects a long-term process of discovery on the red planet. Now, built on strategies to understand Mars' potential as a habitat for past or present microorbital life. Now, searching for this answer means developing into the planet's geologic and climate history to find out how, when, and why Mars underwent dramatic changes to become the forbidding yet promising planet that we observe today. Also, some people would probably know it as being a barren planet, right? Now, about 3.8 to 3.5 billion years ago, Mars and Earth were much similar. You remember what I was saying you earlier? Now, evidence from Mars missions suggests that Mars may have been much warmer and, in fact, wetter than what we observe it to be today. Interesting stuff. So I'm going to throw you over again another NASA news update, which is called the Bright Stuff. This one's a little bit different, but it, in fact, with NASA, with dawn findings at Ceres. Check this one out.
When folks think about asteroids, they might think about dead chunks of rock that are floating around space. And what we see with Ceres is that processes are modifying the surface even in the present day.
Approaching Ceres, we saw this very bright region on the surface. And then as we got closer and closer, you saw that there were multiple bright regions in this one crater. There's the one in the center, which is called Soralia Facula. And then there's the ones off to the side in the crater floor, which are called Venalia Faculae. Soralia is located in a pit within the center of the crater. That pit is about 10 kilometers wide, and so it's about 1/9 the diameter of Octo crater itself. And then within that pit there is a little central dome.
What we're seeing is an indication that there are liquid brines, potentially in the subsurface even in the present day, rising to the surface and becoming these bright spots. And that tells us that there has to be a process providing energy to drive these fluids to the surface. We call them bright spots, but actually it's a relative term. The brightest bright spot on Ceres, Soralia Facula, has an albedo of around 0.5, which is about the same brightness as dirty snow. Bright spots on Ceres aren't limited to a single place. We found that there are over 300 bright spots all over the surface of Ceres, and that indicates that this is a relatively widespread process.
The salts that we see in Octo crater are similar composition to salts that we find in Mono Lake in California. It's interesting that you can have these similar materials found in different places that were formed by different processes.
Ceres represents something of a bridge between the bodies of the inner solar system and the outer solar system. In the inner solar system, we see rocky bodies. In the outer solar system, we more broadly see icy bodies. And Ceres is sitting somewhere in between. We know now from the bright spots that it is changing. The bright spots that are already on the surface are darkening over timescales of hundreds of millions of years or even less. And we also see that the bright spots maybe are still forming. So Ceres is still an active body, and we still have a lot of questions about what are the processes that are modifying Ceres' surface over time, and what that tells us about the internal nature of Ceres and how it actually formed.
Thank you for that again, NASA. So in this ancient time frame, scientists find the first evidence of microbial life on Earth. Now, did Mars provide similar environment conditions for life long ago? Well, if microbes were present on Mars on the planet ancient's past, could it exist in special regions today? And if microbial life never existed, might Mars actually provide a future habitat for human explorers someday in the future? Well, because water is a key of life as we know it, earlier Mars missions, back in 2001, the Mars Odyssey, which was the Mars exploration rovers, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, Mars Phoenix lander, as well as were designed to make discoveries under the previous Mars exploration program for science theme of pretty much what they would call follow the water. So I'm going to throw you over to another one, is why NASA is exploring the edge of our planet. Check this one out. This is interesting.
Floating hundreds of miles from Earth, astronauts get a unique perspective of our planet. While they might recognize landmarks, space is the only place they can see the very edge of our planet's atmosphere.
From orbit, particularly looking at the horizon, did bring to mind how thin the atmosphere is. It's like an onion skin around this great big ball of the Earth.
This uppermost layer of Earth's atmosphere, the ionosphere, also overlaps with the very beginning of space. It's the job of NASA's new mission, GOLD, the Global Scale Observations of the LIMENDISC Instrument, to study this region, a region that isn't just for astronauts to explore, but that affects humans every day down on the ground. For one thing, this layer of the upper atmosphere helps protect us from harmful radiation and energy emanating from the sun. But in our modern society, it does so much more. It affects the smartphone that sits in your pocket and the radio waves that guide our airplanes. The ionosphere is a crucial layer of the atmosphere through which our communications and GPS signals travel. And when this region changes, it impacts those communication signals. Changes can occur above this region from the sun's activity, also known as space weather. Changes can also occur below from Earth's weather, such as hurricanes and wind patterns. Gold connects the dots between how space weather and Earth's weather shape the upper reaches of the atmosphere. But this region isn't easy to study. The ionosphere spans roughly 60 to 400 miles from Earth's surface, which is too high for aircraft and scientific balloons, and the lower regions are too low to easily study with satellites. What are attainable, however, are the swaths of red and green light shining out from the upper atmosphere. Formed when the sun's rays hit atmospheric molecules, this light, named airglow, comes from green and red bands of glowing gas. Some of the airglow is invisible to our eyes, shining in infrared and ultraviolet light, which can only be seen with scientific instrumentation. Taking advantage of our planet's natural glow is gold. The gold instrument, which is about the size of a mini-fridge, is hitching a ride on a commercial communication satellite, SES-14. The satellite's orbit lies 22,000 miles above Earth, where it can record images in ultraviolet light to monitor changes in airglow across the globe. These images give information on the temperature, density, and composition of particles in the upper atmosphere. Gold collects these observations faster than any mission has ever done before. It captures an image of Earth's entire disk every 30 minutes, allowing scientists to see how the upper atmosphere evolves throughout the day. Gold joins a host of missions studying the very nature of space around Earth, the Sun, and planets. As NASA ventures farther and farther from home, knowing the nature of space itself is crucial for our journey to understand our solar system and beyond.
Interesting, but you didn't know about that, did you? Now, the progressive discoveries related to evidence of the past and present water in the geologic record make it possible to take the next steps towards finding evidence of life itself. Now, the Mars Science Laboratory mission and its Curiosity rover mark a transition between the themes of follow the water and seek signs of life. Now, in addition to landing in a place within the past. Now, of course, evidence of water, and of course, Curiosity is seeking evidence of organics, the chemical building blocks of life, basically. So, places with water and the chemistry needed for life potentially prove or provide, in fact, habitable conditions. Now, in fact, future Mars missions would likely to be designed to search for life itself in places identified as potential past or present habitats. Okay guys, so well, I'm gonna throw you over a different kind of video. I don't know, you guys watched the Mars film that came out, I think, about a year and a half ago, I think? Well, if not, check out this, and if you have, you guys might know Matt Damon. Well, this is what he had to say with NASA. Check this out.
For me, it's more about the spirit of the people who do it, who do this type of thing, and that's why I wanted to make the movie. I think that's what's so great about the book is just, you know, underneath all of it, and the character's great sense of humor and the way he handles all these situations and how he's pretty unflappable. Like, it's just that concept of self-sacrifice and that willingness to kind of put everything, you know, suborn everything in your life and kind of put the mission ahead of everything, and it's all about kind of pushing that envelope to further our kind of human experience and you know the survival of this species, you know, and it's dependent upon someday, you know, getting off of this planet and going out, and we're in the kind of the, you know, the infancy of that. But, you know, in many ways it's so dangerous, and it's just so that kind of explorer mentality that these folks have. It's just awesome. Well, hopefully the message in a movie like this is one that really kind of galvanizes participation and stuff like this, and makes people excited about science and excited about. I mean, the writer of the movie, when I first met with him, he said, I see this as a love letter to science, and that's really what I want to make. And you know, we talked a lot about it and said, yeah, that's a cool thing to put out into the world right now. And you know, I have 4 little kids. I'd love it if they, you know, if something like this could be part of, you know, the rest of their experience, that would kind of push them towards a life in this type of world. That'd be great. Thank you for what you've done and for what you're doing, and those of us who aren't brave or smart enough to be doing this kind of work are extremely grateful for the work that they're doing, and we know how important it is.
Wow. So yeah, if anybody wanted to know what that was, it actually came out. I was actually wrong. That's really bad. The 30th of September 2015. I actually thought it was a lot less than that. Time flies. It's crazy. So yeah, if you guys haven't watched The Martian yet, I'm sure that video would hopefully kickstart the thought process of going, hey, I want to watch that. Check it out if you haven't. So all Mars exploration programs, missions, in fact, future missions, will be driven by different scientific questions that pretty much continually evolve from discoveries by prior missions. I mean, new and previously developed technologies will enable us to explore Mars in ways we'd never have before. In fact, resulting in higher resolution images, precision landings, longer ranging surface mobility, and even returning of Martian soil and rock samples for studies in laboratories here on Earth. How crazy is that? So I know that we're pretty much at the end right now. So I'm going to be throwing over you a last video. I'm not going anywhere just yet. But check this one out. I dedicate this one to all of you, and this is from NASA, just to say NASA does a lot of hard work, but they also have fun, and you know it. Check it out.
We're not EDL, time for 7 minutes of flaming hell. Rover's touching down, everybody pass peanuts around. Yeah, we have mission control, getting full use out of every soul. Just 25 feet left to go, it's Curiosity, look out below, yo. Try and lower that rover, try and lower that rover, try and lower that rover. Nothing to bug out. Try and lower that rover, try and lower that rover, try and lower that rover. Nothing to bug out. Kicking at my console, this is what I see. Okay. Data streaming back from Curiosity. I got stars on my hawk, and I ain't afraid to show it, show it, show it, show it. We're NASA and we know it. We're NASA and we know it. Yo, when I look for ice, gotta calibrate, gotta be precise. And when I raise the mast, panoramic views are unsurpassed. This is how I rove, baking red rocks in my nuclear stove. We headed to the peak with my laser eye. No one to bury me when it's time to die. Try and lower that rover, try and lower that rover, try and lower that rover. Nothing to bug out. Try and lower that rover, try and lower that rover, try and lower that rover. Nothing to bug out. Shout out to Carl the Sage and Neil deGrasse T. Shout out to JPL and the Rocker Bogey. We're better than SpaceX, and we ain't afraid to show it, show it, show it, show it. We're NASA and we know it. We're NASA and we know it. We're NASA and we know it.
Okay, I had to laugh at that one. That one was funny. I don't know about you. Jeff, how were you laughing at that one as well? I think I would have been crazy. So, of course, we had quite a few people in the chat room. We've had quite a lot of people talking on Facebook Live. Jeff wants to know if anyone would go to Mars. He says, not so sure if I was meant to... Wait, what did he say? Not so sure I would if it meant not coming back. Oh yeah, because there's talks about how it's a one-way trip. Okay. So, guys, at the end of this, I'm sorry, I've got to go, but just before I go, there's some important information I actually said to you at the beginning. If you saw any form of advertising with us, if you would like anything to do with our shows or anything like that, especially with advertising with EUU, playing a role or whatever it is that you would like, you think you want to help out, please email us at euu@tropicalfm.com. And if you would like to maybe play a role with the actual company of Tropical, now you can also contact via info@tropicalfm.com, or if you're a little bit better than that and you want to do it formally, you can also check out our website. Of course, you'll have a look on there. It will say slot request. You can fill out the form there. Of course, if you would like to have your music request played out, because we do have a 30-minute music mix that plays out before the show starts. Don't know if you guys have seen it. Check it out. It's brilliant. Yeah, this is where you have your little bit of music platform to play out what you like. So again, if you want to do that, please also get in contact with us. Again, it's euu@tropicalfm.com. We hope you enjoyed the show. Next week, wow, it's going to be a killer. You probably will like Mars tonight, so I'm going to throw you over to part 2 next week. Let us know what you want us to do for the following weeks. Don't mind covering it. If it's a rerun or whatever you want, we'll do it. So again, my thanks goes to everybody in the chat room. Jeff's laughing. So yeah, thank you for everybody who's been watching it. You've been great. Please share the video or whatever it is that you would like to do. Please tell everybody. We hope you all have a good weekend. Stay safe and see you next Sunday. Take care. Bye.
Tropical FM TV, music for your soul.